Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to take a look at a new set of budget markers. I've had these for a couple of months, to be honest. I just haven't had a chance to get around to really putting them through their paces and reviewing them. But I thought I would do it today since I have used it in a few projects. I actually can't remember the other project I used them in, but I do have an example, and we're going to do some comparison, some blending today, and hopefully this will help you determine whether these markers are a good fit for you or something you can skip because you already have something very similar already. This is the 100 set of HOTU markers, art markers. They are an alcohol-based marker, and they are chisel and bullet tip markers. And they come in this box, or I guess it's more of like a bag, but it does have this divider here in the center. I'm not sure if the divider has an actual bottom on it. Let's pull it out and see. We also get a little card here with some information about joining the community. I guess you could QR code that if you wanted to, and just some kind of like tips and tricks. We have a swatch card that you'll need to color in yourself, which is great because you do want to swatch for your markers. And let's see if this part comes out without... Oh, it will come out. I just want to feel under there. Okay, yeah, this will come out, and it does have a bottom on it, so if you do want to take that out and put it on a shelf instead of keeping it in the bag, you could do that. It's divided into 4 quadrants, and I just kind of separated these markers by their color grouping just to make it easier for if I'm sitting on the couch and I want to color with these. So taking a look at these markers, you probably think they look a little familiar. We've seen markers like this in the past. I'm just going to zoom in a bit. We have the silver writing on there, and you know what? I'm going to pull an HOTU marker because to me, when I first saw this, I'm like, oh, I wonder if HOTU is making these because they look so very similar. So I did check the numbers. The numbers do not match the color, so it's not the same coloring ink system, which I thought maybe they were, but there's definitely some inspirations taken from, or maybe they're using the exact same marker body. They both have silver lettering on them. They both have a, well, this one has a color marking on the fine end. The HOTU has a color marking on the brush end. They have the recessed caps that peg on the HOTU, but the HOTU has a little snazzy wave. The HOTU markers also peg, also post, so that's nice. So if you want a marker that does that, then either option will work. So I'm just going to show you a comparison. I'm just going to take the caps off both of the HOTU ends and both of the HOTU ends. Ooh, and we will just do a quick comparison, and then I'll show you the HOTU chisel and fine series too. So let's just flip that over there so you can see. The chisels look about identical. Obviously, you've got a bullet on the HOTU and you got a brush on the HOTU, although the HOTU do make a 60 set of the brush-tipped markers, which I assume are probably very similar to the HOTU if you were going that route. And we'll talk about prices between them and how they compare to the HOTU markers in a little bit, since I think they're probably going to be the closest comparison. But let me just quickly grab an HOTU marker here. Their Oahu are slimmer than the oval barrel, and their caps also post. So just to compare the bullet tips, the HOTU bullet tip on the Oahu marker is more fine. I don't have the Honolulu set B that have the brush and fine tip, which actually I think is probably the most useful selection, or the most useful variant of the HOTU markers. I don't have those though, so I don't know how the bullet would compare. But as far as making lines, let's just do a really quick. That's the HOTU. That's the HOTU. So the HOTU nib on their Oahu markers are finer. So just a little comparison there. The chisels again look about the same on the Oahu versus the HOTU. But I think these are probably trying to capitalize on the popularity of the HOTU markers. That's the HOTU chisel. That's the HOTU chisel. Now, of course, the colors aren't the same, but just to kind of give you an idea, I think the chisels are the same, and probably in the brushes are the same too, most likely. Another thing that reminded me of the HOTU set was this swatch card, because the HOTU swatch card looks very similar. And I thought, oh, and so the first thing I had to do was check the numbers to see if they were matches, and they weren't. None of them were matches, and the color codes, the color letters and stuff were different too. Now you can see the HOTU one is a little bit bigger, and also the paper's different on the swatch cards. The HOTU has a little bit more texture, and it bleeds through to the back, and the HOTU does not. So I did want to just kind of bring that out, because I figured that a lot of people would see that and be like, oh my gosh, that's the same as HOTU. Very similar, but the paper is different. Honestly, I think it's just trying to look like it. And because the paper I can tell is not the same, I really can't reliably go on the ink quality being the same, because I'm seeing a lot of speckling on this paper, but not on the HOTU paper. But I think it's just because the paper is different, because honestly, with so many of these markers, I don't find a difference in the quality of the ink. It really comes down to the nibs in a lot of cases. So I don't want to say, well, these aren't as good because they've got speckles, and HOTUs don't have speckles. I think I can't say that because the paper is clearly different. So I just want to get that out of the way, because I'm sure a lot of people will be like, oh, those are so similar to the HOTUs. Now, what I do think they're similar to is actually the Artify markers. And Artify does have uses the same brush nib as the HOTU markers. My Artify brush nibs are upstairs on my fun art desk. I use that a lot for Inktober, and they've actually served me very well over the last few years. And also, I compared it to the these Artify markers that came out, I think it was like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, these slim ones, which actually HOTU came out with a very similar marker too, but still the color numbers didn't match, because I checked the HOTU color numbers for these and their Oahu ones to see if they would match, but they didn't. However, the Artify markers, both the brush and chisel version and the chisel and bullet version, matches. So I just wanted to say that I took a few colors that were the same. Obviously they're not the same color selection, but I took some that were the same and I compared them. So this was R502 in the Artify brush, the HOTU, and the Artify Slim, or what do they call these? Art markers, Born for Drawing. Enhanced, they're just called the enhanced. I have the 80 enhanced here. And these Artify ones were more expensive, as I recall. But they've got a different chisel nib. They've got this kind of like long, skinny, tapered nib that I actually really like, because you can get fine lines, you can get textured lines, you can get broad ones. I really like that nib. Of course, I say I like it, but have I used it much? No, I haven't, because I have too many markers. But anyway, and this was R706. I didn't have that in the brush, but the slim ones and the HOTU matched. R611, I had it in all 3 versions, all matched. R003, all matched. R608, that one wasn't a perfect match, but it could just be the HOTUs are newer, so it's juicier maybe, I don't know, or batch differences. And then B003, I just had that in 2 versions, and they both matched. So if you have Artify markers and you love that color scheme and you want to have more and maybe some different colors in that ink, I mean, that's something you could do. Honestly, I think if you have any of these basic sets, you really don't need to buy another basic set, because you're going to have so much duplication. The thing that I will say, and this isn't I'm not saying this to be an endorsement of HOTU or anything, because I think quality-wise we're all pretty much equivalent in these budget realms. But the thing about HOTU is that you can build up to a larger set, and they do have refills for the most popular colors, and they do seem to be in it to win it, or be in it for the long haul, because they have continuously added on with like replaceable brush nibs and papers and different things like that. So as far as all the budget brands, HOTU does seem to have a little bit more skin in the game, I guess I would say. But with that comes a higher price for your marker. And if you're just kind of like, I don't know if I really want this, or I just want a basic set that I can do some sketching with, this might be a really good option for you. And this isn't marker paper. I have this sketch pad sitting around that I'm trying to use up, so I was using that for that. But I do want to do some blending on some actual marker papers so that we see how they will do. Let's talk about price. The HOTU markers, if you're looking at the brush and chisel version, which is what I'm reviewing today, I haven't tried, the chisel and bullet version, which is what I'm reviewing today, because I have not tried the brush version, but these are on sale right now with a 20% off coupon, which brings them down to 36 cents per marker, or 40 cents per marker full price, because the sets are $40, $39.99 on Amazon. If you're looking at the brush markers are also $40 for a 60 set. So that brings, and they're on sale for 20% off. So you get them for between 52 cents and 67 cents per marker, depending if there's a coupon or not, versus HOTU, which is 83 cents per brush chisel or brush fine marker in the 48 count set. Those are just the closest size set, so I wanted to compare apples with apples. And HOTU for a 100 count set, they are 60 cents. 60 cents for the brush, I'm sorry, oh my gosh, 60 cents for the bullet chisel versus 36 to 40 cents for the HOTU. So the HOTUs are significantly cheaper. Now let's do some blending. So I'm looking at my color swatch and I'm just going to see what colors do I want. Let's see, this is a pretty color, R213. Now, if you look right here, you can see that the color caps are a bit off. And that is the case with a lot of markers, especially budget markers, so you really want to swatch them. And ideally, you want to swatch them on the marker paper that you're going to use the most often. I've used markers for so long, I generally just swatch them on the swatch cards that come with them and call it a day. But you can get as elaborate as you want. If there's markers that you know you want to use every single time, then I've got a whole video on how to swatch your markers to get the best blending possible, and I'll try to remember to link that down below. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely better ways to do your swatching if you're wanting to invest in it. So I'm going to do 302 to 213. Those look like, actually, that one looks 502 to 213. So basically, and there's something also about budget markers. Often I find the numbers don't really make much sense. They're just kind of like assigning a color to a number. In a lot of cases, some markers have gone the extra mile to come up with a more logical system, like Arteza, for instance. They've come out with a blending system. I think that HOTU's gotten better with their new marker labeling system. But all of their marker lines have different labeling systems on them, which I don't like. I wish they would be consistent, kind of like Artify is, because it's so much easier to figure out what you want. Actually, let's start with something easier. Let's start with like a brown or a yellow blend. So let's do Y611. Now, there aren't any super duper pastel tones. I mean, there's some light tones, but they're not super pastel, so that might cause a little bit of trouble. And there are big gaps in between your colors, so that can also cause a bit of a trouble. Let's do Y623. Should we try 3 colors? Let's do Y648. Let's do a 3-color blend here. Browns are generally kind of easy. So probably the easiest way to do a blend is to color in your area with your lightest color. Now I'm just doing a very quick thing. I do it with lightest color, then I'll go in with my darkest color. I'll clean up the edges with the bullet tip. But I'm generally using my chisel tip if I need to blend a large area, because if you can get more ink flow out, then you can get better blending. Now I'm going to go in with this medium color. You can color over the entire dark area, or you can just color over the edge of the dark area, depending on how big of a jump you're making. If you're making a big jump, you probably need to color over the entire thing, and then I'll probably color over the entire thing with a lighter color again, just to help those colors blend. But that is a pretty big jump there, so it will tend to bleach out the darker colors a little bit. Just for a reference here, we'll do our little colors. Blends fine. It blends like every other, pretty much every other marker. I will say it's harder to blend with a chisel and bullet versus a brush tip. A brush tip is going to make it easier to blend because you just get that more natural response. But, you know, if you just want to do some sketching, you might not be an artist that likes to do the blending. That might not be your cup of tea. So, you know, there's a pot for every lid. There's a lid for every pot. Get the markers. They're going to do the job you want them to do for the price you want to pay. And we'll be able to see how the speckling is here too versus how it is on the card as we're blending. Let's do 502, 503, and then 213. I think that would work pretty good. So 502, 503, 213. All right, 213 is our darkest, which is weird because it looks like 503 would be our darkest, and 502 is our lightest. So see what I mean about it? It's not very intuitive. as far as the numbers go. And something I like to do often, and I haven't done it with these because it takes a long time and I'm not sure I'm that invested in this set of markers. I'll probably end up giving them away to somebody getting into markers. I do that a lot. I do have a lot of sets though because I don't know... Now when I have to shift colors, like one's a little bit more coral, one's a little more hot pink, then I will color over everything just to kind of unify them. Oh shoot. Just went the wrong color. That's what you get for trying to talk and explain at the same time. We'll have to do this one over, I think, but alright, let's try that again. So this is our lightest color, right? 502? Yes, 302. Wait a minute. No, 502. Yeah, that's our lightest color. You go over there, light color, 503. No, 213 is our darkest. So you go right there. Then we're going to go back. We'll go in with our medium color, which is 503, which is our weird hot pink color. So we'll have to color over the darker color too. And then we'll color over the entire thing with our hot pink and see how that blends. I mean, with our lightest color. And then we'll let it dry to see how it goes. Yeah, that blends pretty good. But again, it's not a super duper light color. 302. Did we use that one? Was that 302? That was 502. 502, 302. Yeah, they're probably similarly light, actually. So when you do have to kind of go into a different undertoned pink, like that's a little more corally, that's a little bit more purpley, that's a little bit more dusty, you know, you just kind of have to overlap them to get them to mix and act like they belong together. But that blended pretty well. Let's see. Blues can be kind of tricky. These three blues actually look pretty good. So 205, 204, and 203. And actually those three are pretty well, they're numbered well. They're numbered well, like they're going to make sense. Light, medium, dark, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I like that. Okay, blue's a little trickier to blend, so I'm going to definitely do my priming. We'll color in an area. Obviously, you know, I mean, you could take classes on blending markers, and that's probably a great idea. Blending is not going to be the best skill with this set, I don't think, though. And this is our medium color. I don't think we need to go over the whole thing because they're so close. Like a little light one. These actually might be too close. Because I don't have enough contrast. I feel like I don't have enough contrast here. So why don't I actually go in there with a little bit more of the dark. Bring it out a little bit more. Go over it with the medium. You can see how you don't need to do as much if your colors are closer. And it's actually much easier too if your colors are, I don't like that line there, if your colors are, if it's a brush tip, oh my word, coloring and talking. I think I would have mastered that in kindergarten. According to my teachers, I did. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And then let's do another type of blend. Let's do it with green, because green's pretty easy to blend. Let's do just a dark to light blend. I'm going to do, ooh, I like these three colors. Actually, maybe G743, G715, and then maybe G23. Is that lighter? Let's see, G4, G743 for my dark, G750. That's quite a jump though. That is, just to let you know, that is quite a jump. G715. So that might be a little challenging. And where'd you go, G715? Right here. And then, ooh, I think I might have to go to G804 because I think G702 is too light, but we could try it. We could try it. Let's get G804 out just in case. And this can be, if you, now I'll show you what I mean about making the swatches. So if it's a marker set I really love, I'll make swatches to go right on the markers because, especially if the caps aren't perfect, because then I can see that and I can have my markers laid out on my table, and when they're laying like that and I'm grabbing a color to blend, I can see exactly what I have. So, I mean, when you get to the higher end markers, you're going to have better color caps. Like Copic has better color caps, but you're also going to pay $8, $7, $8 a pop for a marker. And they've had some issues with their caps lately that have been making the markers dry out. So I've been very hesitant to recommend them because of that. Even though I have some older ones that still work great, that I enjoy. I can't find G804. Ah, here we go. All right, let's see. Should we do it? Let's do a 4-color. Let's see how it goes. Okay, let's start off with our dark one. Kind of actually, you know what? Let's start off with our next dark one. I'll go back in with the darkest after I've gotten a little bit of color down. And we'll just work. Like that. So actually that gives us a pretty good blend, but I do want a little bit more contrast, so I'll go in with a little bit of a darker color, and then I'll repeat. Now obviously I don't have to worry about staying in the lines here, so it's a little bit easier for me. But that gives us a pretty good, blend. Greens are something where it's nice to have a good selection. You do get a pretty good selection of greens, but they have different undertones, so what you might end up doing is having to get the value you want, having to go into these with one of these bluer greens, and then glaze over the whole thing with one of the yellow greens if you need to make everything match together. But all in all, I think they blend just as well as most other brands. Just looking at our paper there. Let me grab a few Ohuhus just to do. I'll do a green blend with the Ohuhus, and we can just check speckling, because I do think these are trying to appeal to the Ohuhu brand the most. Oh, you know what? Let me look at my color swatches. I'm just trying to pick, and I've got so many of those Ohuhu. Oh, these three. Those three would work really good. GY42. GY8, and probably GY4. I think that would work pretty good. GY4. Also GY2. Yeah, but look at that. I mean, GY4. Why is that darker than GY7? You know, that doesn't make sense. Actually, GY5 would work really good. Yeah, it's like, why is it arranged like that? We'll do these 4 colors because I do have 4. But these, I mean, at least 4, 5, 8, 42. I mean, it's kind of crazy. Okay, let's just try that. Let's just try that, and we will compare. Now, I have more colors in Ohuhu, so that makes it easier right off the bat. And I'm just using the chisel tips to make it fair. If I did it with the brush tips, it would be easier. I have to go over that a little bit because I feel like that color is a little different. And see, it is easier to get a blend because the colors are closer together. But I'm getting the same speckling with the Ohuhu that I was with the HOTU markers. So I think that the ink is pretty much the same. Oops, that's the brush tip. And we did go over it again, so we'll just go ahead and go over it again. But again, these are closer together, so they're easier to blend. I feel like, oh yeah, I think I have to go this one next. But yeah, I mean, same amount of speckling. I think the ink and markers are pretty much the same. But, you know, the HOTUs are cheaper. You don't have as large of a color range, but really, it's, what do you want? I feel like the ink is definitely comparable, and I feel like the body build quality is definitely comparable. You know, they're not refillable markers, but obviously you could refill them. Let's take a look at the nib. Actually, no, we don't need to do that because we know we got a brush and a chisel. It's pretty standard. I was gonna compare brush nibs, but they don't have brush nibs. You know, though, you probably could, but this would just add to the expense. I don't know why you would, but you probably could you wanted to take out the chisel and put in the OHOTU. Yeah, you could put the OHOTU nibs in there, brush nibs in there if you wanted to, but then it's going to be just as expensive as just buying the OHOTUs to begin with, so I don't think that's a great idea. Oh, can I get that guy back in there? Come on, you. That's probably not a great idea. Yeah, I don't recommend pulling out the nibs willy-nilly. But I was curious. The OHOTU comes with a reversible brush nib, so you can flip them around if it gets worn down, which is really nice. And then you can also buy replacement nibs if you need to. So it's just something to consider while you're making your purchases. So I did use these for some card making the other day, and I thought I would just share those cards with you if you didn't see that video. And what I used them for was the coloring on these poppies. Now I did have a not perfect blending. I mean, I think that's part of using the bullet and the chisel. It's harder to get a softer line, but they got the job done. I don't have any complaints about how they worked. I know I did 2 of these I did on camera and 2 I did off camera. Off camera coloring is always a little bit better. That looks a little sloppy, but you know, you can get there. Ease of use though, brush tip is easier to use, but you know, you definitely can get some pretty effects and pretty blending, and yeah, I mean, it just depends on what you want. For me, in my limited marker art time that I have, I'm going to use a brush tip marker. And honestly, if I have my druthers, it's a neoprene based brush tip marker, not a fiber based brush tip marker. So although I have a lot of these budget markers will have a fiber tip, OHOTU has a fiber tip, it's not as flexible, it does wear down. Granted, you can flip them around, but it's not the same quality as say a Copic nib, or the Altenew nib, or the Blick Studio nib, or the newer Arteza brush nibs. They just have a little bit more flex, a little bit more resilience. They blend a little bit nicer. They don't splatter as much, but you're going to pay more for them. I'm going to be reviewing the Olo markers soon. I'm very excited to try those. But I mean, as long as you know what you're getting, I think with these markers, as long as you have clear expectations, any of them can do the job. Any of them can do what you need them to do. You just got to see if it's going to have the color selection you want. You know, I try to find things that have packaging that I'll keep and use. Like if you're always on the go, having something with a little marker bag, this doesn't take up a lot of space. You could tuck this on the bookshelf in your living room and color while you're watching TV. Things that keep things convenient and easy to use, I'm a big fan of. Buying stuff that you have to discard the packaging and buy new storage, I don't like that. And I like how marker companies are being mindful of that. But a lot of these marker companies, at the end of the day, they're trying to sell markers, and they're gonna keep pumping out the sets that are going to sell, and you know, copying the brands that are making the markers that sell. So quality wise, I don't think there's a huge difference in many of them. And yeah, the ink is the same as the Artify markers. I didn't see any other markers sets that I've used or that I have that have that same ink coloring system. So just to kind of give you a heads up on what to expect there. But I mean, should you run out and get these if you already have Artify or OHOTU or Arteza? Probably not, unless you want these colors, you want this specific arrangement to carry around with you. If you've never used marker before and you want an inexpensive set to see if you like it, yes, with the caveat that I think the brush, if you've never used markers before, it's kind of like learning how to drive. And I have to thank viewer Dean for giving me this analogy, because it's just perfect. It's like you're learning how to drive. Do you want to learn on an automatic or do you want to learn on a stick shift? Because using a chisel bullet tip combination is like learning how to drive a manual transmission car, and learning how to drive with and having a brush tip marker is like learning how to drive on an automatic car. Do you want to bring that extra level of difficulty to your marker learning? And you know, that's to me the best analogy. But if budget's your number one concern and having a bunch of colors is your number one concern, then your chisel bullet nibs are going to be the best option for that. But if you have a little extra to spend, or you don't mind having fewer colors for the same amount of money, getting the brush tip ones is going to be a lot easier for you to learn with. It just makes the learning curve a lot more shallow. And take this from a woman who learned how to drive on a manual transmission, and it took her several tries to get her driver's license, and she was a complete nervous wreck behind the wheel. I'd say go with the brush tip. Although I learned how to use markers with Sharpies and Bic markets, and then Prismacolor markers, which were the chisel nib and a bullet nib. That's how I learned. So I don't have a big problem with these, but if I had learned on a brush, it would be very difficult to go to these, I think. So there's some food for thought. I probably didn't make it any clearer for you or any easier to understand. But, you know, a lot of times when we're sketching with markers, we're not looking for that seamlessly blended look. We're maybe taking a few markers and we're doing some quick color studies, some quick sketches. You're not going to be rendering and blending. And these are great for quick sketches. You don't need to have brush markers for quick sketches. These are going to be more durable than brush markers too. So, you know, if you're coloring with your kids and you want the markers to last a little bit longer because they're young and they're tough on them, then yeah, those are going to be better. Of course, these are not really a kid's product because they stain things. They're alcohol based. They have, I'm going to sniff these. I didn't think they had very bad, like you can smell a mild alcohol smell, but I mean, it's nothing that I really noticed, probably because I've used markers for so long. You know, it just depends on what you want to do. I've got tutorials on my YouTube channel where I'm using brush and chisel markers. I have ones where I'm using the chisel and bullet markers. You can see, I even have a video of a beetle where I compare coloring with the brush markers and chisel markers, so you can chisel bullet markers, just so you can see. Because with a brush marker, I find you can do most everything with that brush. With a chisel marker, you're going to be using the chisel and the bullet both a lot because you're going to need what they both can do, whereas the brush can kind of do both things. So that video of a beetle is up on my channel too, if you want to just kind of see how it differs. But there you go. And I also have a class all about alcohol markers. And if you're looking to learn more about alcohol markers, I highly recommend that class. I do recommend a different set. I recommend a set of brush markers by Sanjoki for that set, just because they're affordable, they get the job done, and you get 120 markers for, I think, about $50. So it's actually a better value than these. But anyway, hey, there's the right set out there for you. A lot of them are just so very similar. So I guess maybe that's why I wasn't too in a rush to review these, because I just feel like they're very similar to what's already on the market that I've already reviewed a million times. But they're good. They're decent markers. Nothing wrong with them. They've got a coupon going on now at the time of recording. You know, they're not a bad buy. Not a bad buy at all. They're just not going to, you know, knock your socks off, or they didn't knock my socks off anyway, but they're perfectly serviceable. Then that's my review. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed these reviews. I hope you found it helpful. And until next time, happy crafting. Bye.